Welcome back to Be Rich, guys, and I've got Shashwath with me like I promised. We have the entire week with Shashwath. So if you do have anything specific you'd like to talk about, of course, I loved all the comments in the last video. I made Shashwath read them, and he was also very humored and enthusiastic reading those comments. And he's brought another topic which I don't know anything about, which we'll get into. But thanks for the comments. Do comment again after this video below. And if there's anything you would like Shashwath to talk about this week, put it down in the comments, and I'll try and ask Shashwath to cover that before he heads off. So Shashwath, what do we have today?
So the previous piece, yes, someone had mentioned that they read it on The Economist. That's right. I generally look through the Wall Street Journal, Economist, Financial Times, New York Times, and a few other newspapers in the morning to basically get an idea of what's happening in the world. So if I see an interesting topic, I pick it from there. I do usually remember to mention where I get it from, but I think yesterday we missed it out. But yes, it's an Economist piece. And today what we're going to be talking about is also something that came on The Economist, but I also read it in Financial Times and I've been thinking about it. We've been talking about it. It's who is paying for the Trump tariffs? Because, there's this tariff that's been unrolled onto a plethora of different countries. There are different deals going on between these countries. EU has recently agreed for a 15% tariff on all their products coming into America. China is on the brink of, having a huge tariff levied on them unless they strike a deal with Donald Trump, which apparently negotiations are going on. And Japan has agreed to a deal as well. So considering all this, and India is also negotiating a deal, in the process of negotiating a deal. So the question is Trump a mastermind? Has he sort of figured out a way for Americans to get the best out of this deal, or out of the deal, as he says? Or is it something where the American people are paying for what's happening? So when we look at the data, the Economist had picked out this data, and I found it very interesting. I want to bring it to you. So when they looked at it, last time, 2019, when Trump went into a trade war with China, most of the Chinese products saw their prices rise because China was passing the tariff on to American spenders. This time, however, when you look at the core inflation rate, for the previous month or something, there was barely any tick. That is, there has been no change in price levels compared to what people were expecting. And by people, I mean, of course, the Federal Reserve. So, and analysts as well, investment analysts keep track of inflation for interest rate reasons. And no one predicted the fact that inflation would underplay what they predicted. So, this is something curious. And if we look at the products which are currently on American shelves, a lot of them are imported products. Those products are still imported. And for example, Nintendo has not increased its price for its gaming console. I know that Nintendo is something that's more of a discretionary good, consumer good, but however, the point still holds that a lot of companies are willing to sort of bear, at least temporarily, the load of at least seemingly on the face of it, they're willing to bear the load of the tariffs. However, when we look into it a bit further, it looks like even because Trump has been talking about this trade war which he's going to have, and he's going to get America the best side of the deal and stuff like that. He's been talking about this since his re-election campaign. So it seems that American companies had started stockpiling a lot of inventory much before Trump actually came into power, and much after Trump came into power, before the tariffs were levied. They were stockpiling inventory because they knew that something like this was going to happen. And there's one theory floating out there that a lot of this resistance to price level increases due to tariffs are because they have that excess spare inventory to be able to sit tight and still hunker down and sell goods at the price level that consumers were seeing before. Another interesting facet of this is that even amongst companies that did not build a huge inventory portfolio, we are seeing companies willing to take more of the tariff load. At least they're willing to share the tariff load with the consumer, unlike last time. Last time, and other economists have actually postulated through historical case studies that usually when tariffs are levied, the citizens of the country are the ones who pay eventually. However, depending on the financial position of the seller, they may be willing to bear some of the tariff load on themselves. There's two options. One, you pass all the costs to the consumer. Otherwise, you take all the costs onto yourself. These are the two options if there is a deal to be made in terms of selling stuff. However, it seems that this time the producers who have pricing power are choosing to sort of price it at the same price they were seeing before, or a slight markup. And some makeup and beauty products as well, especially, they've been very pliant and willing to sort of not let their price levels rise. And some of this, apparently, according to executives, is coming from fears that consumers will drop their products if they raise their prices. So actual pricing power may not lie with the producers at all, because apparently Americans seem to be quite price sensitive currently, and any small rise in price may stroke fears of the previous inflationary bout that they had seen in post 2021, the stimulus boom and all that. So this is another side of the coin. Finally, the last piece to this puzzle, this inflation puzzle, is how long is this resilience to prices going to last. It could also be simply that American consumers aren't spending as much as they were spending before. So, it's basic demand and supply. If demand shifts to the left, that is, if demand reduces, then price levels automatically remain resilient towards any sort of inflationary effects. So, however, job numbers are doing quite well in America. There doesn't seem to be a lot of pain as of yet. So, the question is not whether demand is a problem, or rather demand is lower. It seems to me that this is a temporary resilience that the market has built because they were able to expect some sort of volatility from Trump. Though I still believe that the economists are going to be right about this if the trade war continues and a 15% tariff is levied, and that's the final state of affairs for at least the foreseeable future. I personally truly do believe that inflation is going to start ticking up as soon as the excess inventory is out, as soon as the financial position of these producers weakens due to less pricing power. If all of these factors come into play, like TCS for example, or your IT companies for example, they're facing the pain. I'm not saying that all producers are going to face this pain, but some pain is to be faced. The question is only whether it's going to be today or tomorrow, is my opinion on this. What do you think about this?
What you said about the short term is very true. There's a piece which I read which spoke about Republicans versus Democrats in terms of how much pain they're willing to bear for these tariffs so America gets a good deal. As expected, Democrats didn't want any tariffs. Then all the Democrats, no matter it was good or bad for America, they don't want anything to do with Trump. But if you saw the Republican sides, quite a majority of them were okay with tariffs for the short term. And this is the sweet spot. If Trump is able to stitch all this together before the stock runs out, or even if there's a slight uptick in prices and inflation, the people who brought him into power are ready to sit on it. They're ready to bear it because they feel on the greater good, this is going to be good for the Americans, because that's what they've been sold. Now the question is this art of a deal? This is a brilliant move by him. This reminds me of Jack Welch, the GE guy. At the time when he was there, like my brother said, everyone was praising him. He was the manager of America. He was the best manager. Everybody should have a Jack Welch running their company. And his book was there, and his philosophy of management was said it was a gold standard. Of course, all of this has now changed at 180, and his thing is thought to be very toxic, the way he led the organization. And the reason why GE fell the way it fell is thanks to him, what he did with GE Capital and Countrywide. So now we know that, looking back at hindsight. So as far as Trump is concerned, we are in the thick of it. We are in the middle of a snake oil charm going on. Now, how much of this is calculated? How much of this was just purely fabricated and made up, smoke and mirrors? Only time will tell. Yeah. Unfortunately, I hope and pray for the world and the Americans that for some weird reason he was a genius and all you of us are idiots and he was someone brilliant. Because a flip of it, if we are right, economists are right, the fallout from this, it is going to be catastrophic not only to the Americans, but the global whole ecosystem of global trade and global commerce, because since the 1930s, we have not experienced this kind of
protectionism.
Yes, purposely done, instigated, man-made, just for no reason stoking it.
Yep.
That's where we are. Was it needed? I don't know. I'm not a person to judge. Was it the only way the Americans could get what they want? I don't know. I think could have been reasonably other ways, especially with their close partners, their largest partners. The Japanese are very friendly and they were willing to talk. The Europeans are very friendly, and considering what's happening with Russia, they would have been willing to talk. And of course, the Canadians have been a very long-standing partner. So it is very strange for the rest of the world to see this kind of behavior. It looks rather schizophrenic, and we have not even done with the year. All this started in Jan-Feb, and it feels like that was a lifetime ago when he was sworn in.
Yeah.
Can't even imagine.
It's only been 6 months.
Yeah, can't even imagine that there was a president called Joe Biden last year.
Yeah.
This feels like it's been going on for a very long time,
Yeah.
because that's how he has been captivating the news cycles. So can't say this, because this is how much of smoke he's generated that it's very difficult to keep your senses and your wits about right now. And you're right, distributors are carrying the cost, because you can't call them producers in the US because they don't produce a goddamn thing. The whole thing is manufactured in China, and these guys are bringing it, putting a label on it, and they're distributing. So all the factories are not there, so none of them are producing. So all of them are basically distributors, and the distributors are absorbing most of the shock, because most of these distributors have been big business owners. They've supported the Republicans, and they have been promised by the Republican ruling class that don't worry, this is short term, we'll get it sorted out. Just don't let it go down to the consumer and get us into trouble.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter, take a loss for us. It's for the greater good. You're going to make more money at the end of it. We're doing other things for you, like crypto and everything else is getting done.
Yeah, and tax cuts.
Yeah, tax cuts. So we're doing things for you. So do this for us. So the distributors are carrying the cost. There's no doubt about it. How much can they carry? When will the distributors revolt? It is just like the oligarchs in Putin, what you said. You know, if the oligarchs in Russia
decide to turn against him.
it's very difficult for Putin to hold on to this.
Yes.
Because he needs the support of the oligarchs. It's not like China, it is not like North Korea, the way the Russian structure is. The oligarchs play a very vital and pivotal role.
Yes.
Of course, some of them have been dropping like flies here and there.
Yeah. No, 1 or 2 oligarchs, but you can't kill your entire population.
No, then you can't function.
Yes.
Because there's a structure is such that.
Yeah.
So same way, the American business elites enable the political democracy system to run in the US. If they decide to suddenly step on the brakes, it will lead to a sudden knee-jerk reaction flowing all the way down to Main Street from Wall Street. So we'll have to wait and watch. This is the main reason you've not seen Wall Street blink an eye.
Yeah.
It's just holding steady day after day, like climate records breaking day after day.
Yeah.
Wall Street is breaking records, going higher and higher, like as if there is no more gravity in this world. Like interest rates, who cares about interest rates?
Yeah.
Usually, like my brother said, they act like a gravity. They pull things down, they slow the economy down. This seems to be on some strange helium gas, which is like gravity has no effect on it. Right now, that's what it perceives, because they're willing to carry the pain and they're willing to make a bet this whole thing is going to work out and all the earnings will come to catch up.
Yeah.
That he's going to make a deal, September, October, we'll be done. Then the floodgates will open in earnings and we're going to have a huge surge in earnings, because all this optimism is going to be in the US and not elsewhere in the world. I don't think that is true. We'll have to wait and watch. Yeah. So anyway, this is where me and Shashwath stand in our opinion about this. We would love to know what your opinion is. Do you take a different view with our assessment? And if you do, we'd like to know what you think. If you're there in the US and if you have some insight which we have missed, please share it in the comments. Me and Shashwath will read it and we'll definitely rebuttal and answer and agree or to disagree in the beginning of the next video before we jump into the topic of the next video. So thanks for joining us on Be Rich today. It was a wonderful evening here in Chennai. Wherever in the world you are, whichever part of the day you are, we wish you well. Nothing else more to say, and thanks for being with us on Be Rich today.
Thank you.